we're back for chapter 2. It's titled The New Music Industry, and just kind of goes over roles you have to play, essentially. And yeah, like I said in the last video, he says that, you know, things have changed, and I tend to agree with that. I mean, obviously he knows what he's talking about in terms of record labels and people expecting their breaks that don't really happen as much anymore. So the first section is called You Thought You Were a Musician. And this is kind of something that I've been experiencing over the past year as I've been getting my audio business like getting going and everything like that. I spent like 5 years before MuseWorks Audio really working on my mixing, songwriting, and since I've gone full-time with music, I've actually spent less time doing music because I've just been trying to get the ball rolling on a bunch of different projects. And I know it's gonna swing back, but that's just where I'm at right now. He just makes it really clear, and this is something that I think artists need to think about, is if you want to do this full-time, you're probably not going to just be making music. There's a lot of other things that go into being a successful artist, beyond just like getting into the studio or practicing your craft. There's a bunch of other stuff you got to do. And this kind of goes for everything. Having good music has to be the baseline. You know, there's so many talented musicians, and a lot of this advice kind of assumes that you already have a certain level of skill. And if you don't already have a level of skill, it's good to learn this kind of stuff anyways, but you might want to practice your craft a little bit before you start thinking business side of things, although not necessarily. Make your own judgment call on that. Also, I know there's probably a lot of people out there who think that they're not good enough when they actually are. So, you know, parsing actual valid self-criticism and imposter syndrome is a tough thing. And then he dives into a myth which I've witnessed a lot of my artist friends falling for this myth. If you build it, they will come. There's so much music being released, and with Spotify and with, you know, the digital recording being as amazing as it is, there's so many people making dope music just in their bedrooms and releasing it. So you have to do stuff to stand out, and you have to have a plan of attack, which is what this book and what these reviews are gonna help give you an idea of how you can have like a blueprint and a plan of attack to be more successful in your releases and stuff like that. And I know people can be unhappy about what it means to be an indie musician nowadays and how much work it can be, but in my opinion, I actually consider it to be a good thing. In terms of like humans, I think, you know, sitting in your bedroom studio all day making music doesn't necessarily lend itself to making like the most balanced human being. And I think learning the business side of things can sort of bring you back and like keep you in balance in a healthy way. I know as I've been learning business, it's really helped me balance the abstract and the concrete. And maybe that's not true for everybody, but that's just something that I've noticed. So I would say, like, don't necessarily just be salty about having to learn the business stuff, because it can actually be really cool to understand this kind of stuff. There's a really great quote in this chapter from Bill Gates that says, "If I only had $2, I would spend $1 on PR." On that topic of music and business, he says, split time and money 50-50 between music and business. And that doesn't necessarily mean every single week you're going to split 50-50, but in general, like, Like I said, for me this year, I've been spending more time on business than I have been on music. And, the prior 5 years, I've been spending a lot more time on music than I had on business. And, maybe if you're in album mode, you're spending more time on music, and maybe post-album mode or pre-release, you're focused more on the business side of things. So try and think about that. I mean, you always want to be improving your craft and working on what you do, but also that goes the same for the business side of things. The next section, he talks about how you got to embrace the hyphen, and this is something I've experienced over the past year as well. Is like now I'm like podcast host, audio engineer, artist, and like vlogger, and you kind of have to go at this in terms of like considering yourself an entrepreneur. So you're a small business owner if you're becoming a professional musician, and you may have to wear quite a few hats, and there's beauty in that, in diversifying your skills. And I think it's the guy who does the Dilbert comics. He said that like he's not the funniest guy, and he's not the best cartoonist, and he's not the best whatever the third thing is that he does. But if you can be like in the top 25% of the three things that you do and combine them all, then you can have like a really unique skill set. And that's kind of ties into embracing the hyphen, I think. So if you get good at like three things, then you're probably going to do quite well for yourself. Something that's pretty cool, and this is a concept that I know I struggle with a scarcity mindset, but when you make decisions, don't merely think about your bottom line this year. Think about how many lifelong fans this is going to bring. You got to remember that building loyal fans is just number one. Just always like consider that in every decision that you make. In every decision you make, ask yourself, is this the best decision for my fans? And if you do that consistently and consistently understand what your fans want, then you can't fail. He breaks down the team that you need as an artist nowadays, and I'll go through it fairly quickly, but the new team, graphic designer, is something that you can kind of at the beginning maybe get away with it yourself if you've ever used Canva, but make sure, and I do this at the moment as well, make sure you keep it simple and don't try and get too fancy, or else you're going to end up making it look corny. Recording engineer, and I think this is really good, and this is something where maybe I'm being a little too honest as an engineer myself. This isn't something that's going to help my business, but I think it's important to state I want artists, to be making wise business decisions as well. So you need someone who can do like scrappy work, and that's kind of how I started, is just doing like live sessions and stuff like that, and that's how I learned my craft. But if you can have someone like that around who can keep the content flowing, and like so you can release consistent, decent sounding music, and then save up your money for like the big masterpiece projects where you're doing like EPs and albums. That's when you want to like bring the big guns in and drop some cash on an album or something like that. And that's when you want to hire really good quality recording and mixing engineers. He also mentions that you need videographer and photographer. If you need to be putting out music videos, which is, if you don't have a music video out, you're going to be losing out on engagement 100%. Photographer, you want to have lots of high quality photos that you can just like keep putting out on the gram and make sure your gram looks good. Digital specialist, this is huge nowadays. Like having someone who can run not just half-ass run Facebook ads, but if you have someone who can run good Facebook ads, that will be such, that's almost like, I don't know, I feel like that's the missing puzzle piece. If you have everything together and you're just like trying to get out to your audience, having someone who can run effective Facebook ads will really boost you and really help you grow quite a bit quicker. And then he says how to learn this stuff, YouTube, and I really agree with that. I learned how to mix for the most part just straight up on YouTube. As I've been getting more advanced, I've been like buying courses from more qualified people, and there's a lot of BS on YouTube for sure, but just be wise and just work at it, and you'll find quality content, and you can learn a ton from YouTube. And then he goes on to talk about managers, band agreements. These are some good reasons to sign with a manager. Has connections that you don't. You're one of their only clients. They love your music. They're a full-time manager. They have experience in the business. Their other clients are the hot acts of today, not legacy acts. They're up to date with current trends. You respect and trust them. Your vision and your goals align. He goes on to explain like what an agent is, what a publicist is, how record labels work, what publishing companies are, what you need an attorney for. And this is really stuff that you need to get the book for, because he really dives super into detail on this stuff, and it's so useful in making like educated decisions if you're serious about this, which obviously if you're like hiring an attorney, I would consider you pretty serious about your work. So the two main points that I really want to break down about this chapter that I think are really good points to hammer home for artists that I'm talking to. He talks about record labels, and he starts it off with some really good points. The goal of your music career should not be to get signed. The wrong, like signing with the wrong label will see to your demise, the demise of your career. If you sign with a shitty label, they will lock away your music and you'll be in debt to them. And listening to Pusha T talk about being in label hell, I mean, there's so many bands that just get stuck in like this purgatory, and they don't own their art anymore. They don't have creative control, and it can just get really, really messy. I think this is kind of common knowledge at this point, but 360 deals, they will take a piece of every bit of your income stream, whether you're merch or you're streaming or your physical copies. It's all gonna end up in the label's pocket, and you're signing with the label. You're not signing with the people come and go. You're signing with the corporation. And this book really dissuades people from necessarily signing to, especially to major labels. He mentions that there's some good indie labels that you can sign with if that's an option for you, but it's not necessary. It just takes a lot of work to get yourself off the ground. And then he finishes off the chapter with something which is pretty cool. A really good way of looking at a common problem in the music industry and something that people are struggling with motivation-wise. Fans aren't going to pay for your music. Fans aren't going to pay for your music as much anymore. It's mostly streaming. And artists have to embrace that. Or, I mean, what else? What are you're gonna fight it? Like, people aren't buying physical copies. It's probably not gonna come back. People value artists, but in different ways nowadays. People will drop $200 on your Kickstarter, but they're probably not going to buy your music, and it almost has something more to do with convenience than money in a lot of ways. Fans won't pay to own your recorded music, but that doesn't mean there aren't other ways for them to support your music. And where he goes into it more later on, but there's other really good ways that you can monetize your music. You got to think about it as if the album is just to get the fans hooked, and all your other stuff can be to monetize. And like I said at the beginning of this, you can either complain about the decline of sales, or you can get creative. And you are a creative, so let's get creative.